Minecraft has a lot of mobs that are interesting in some way. Examples include bosses like the Ender Dragon and the Wither. These are enemies that exude mystery. Their mere presence seems to beckon us to try and figure out who they are and why they exist. Yet there's another mob that, at first, may seem quite dull and forgettable. I'm referring to the slime, a squishy green cube that hops around. It's one of Minecraft's simpler mobs, and most people probably won't see anything special. But the slime is one of those things that becomes increasingly mysterious the more we start to think about it. Why are its spawning conditions so weird? Why can it split into smaller copies of itself? And why is there a different version of it in the Nether? Welcome to Deep Dive, a series where we've been exploring the secrets of Minecraft. Tonight, we're going to take a look at the slime, and in the process, we'll discover some fascinating connections that may be unexpected. While it may be useful if you see my previous deep dives, I'll do my best to explain everything here. With that out of the way, it's almost time to investigate the slimes. Join me for a dive beneath the waves. Before we get started, let's hear from our sponsor, Core. One of the things a lot of you may not know about me is that I made my own video game several years ago using Unreal Engine 3. I had no modeling experience, but I was able to slowly figure out how to make the game using the assets that were already available in the engine. Still, it was very tricky to get the game up and running, and I spent a lot of time trying to make a multiplayer mode which never worked. My younger self would have loved it if there was a way to make the whole development process less painful. And that's what Core does. It's a new PC gaming platform that runs Unreal Engine and allows anyone to create, share, and play multiplayer games. It's extremely easy to use. You can switch between games quickly and seamlessly without needing to download more executables. I also got to spend some time looking at the editor. It's powerful and full-fledged, and it gave me a rush of nostalgia from my old development days. Core also offers a 50% revenue share with its game creators through the Core Perks program. Make money with your games to pay bills, buy dream cars, and quit your day job like many core game creators have already done. If you have even a passing interest in game development, or you just want to play some games made by others, come try it. Use the link in the description and pinned comment to download Core for free. Slimes are, without a doubt, one of the weirder mobs to exist in Minecraft. Unlike most enemies, there are multiple distinct sizes, and killing a slime splits it into several of the next smallest size. For example, the largest naturally spawning size is 4. Killing that results in several slimes of size 2. Killing those produces size 1, and killing one of those drops a slime ball, which could be thought of as size 0. While each size differs in attributes like health and attack strength, they still look and act identically to one another. To rephrase, the size of a slime does not fundamentally change what the mob is. This property distinguishes the slime from most other mobs. In Minecraft, we can't simply chop a cow in half and expect both sides to still be functional. The reason for this is that the cow is a complex life form, and an arbitrary cut may potentially sever important connections between internal organs. But this is not the case for the slime. Any potential cut of the slime causes it to remain living. All of the smaller slimes retain the capabilities of the larger one. This property is more like something we would expect to see in a plant or fungus, not a complex multicellular being. There's a real-life example that has an obvious connection: slime mold. While the term refers to about 900 different species, they are united in several interesting properties. First, slime molds are single-cellular organisms, meaning that individual cells can live and survive on their own. But something strange happens when many of these cells group together. They congregate and begin to simulate a singular organism. Sections of the group can create stalks, which develop fruiting bodies to aid reproduction. They can work together to find the best pathway through a maze, avoiding harmful locations. Furthermore, there is some research which suggests that slime mold can remember some types of knowledge even during dormancy, a property which some scientists refer to as primitive cognition. It's a fascinating emergent property. Remember, these are all individual organisms working together. We can rip slime mold in half and each side will continue to grow and operate independently. What we're seeing in Minecraft is remarkably similar to the real-life slime mold. Slimes are not complex multicellular beings. Instead, there are many single cells working together to simulate certain elements of a multicellular being. It's a substance that, even when split in half, continues to show the same properties and behaviors. It has eyes and a mouth, quasi-organs like the slime mold's fruiting bodies. It has a simple intelligence, capable of targeting players and avoiding the dangers of drowning. Slimes are unlike any other overworld mob, and this slime mold connection offers a solid explanation for many of their oddest qualities. This is an important step forward in our understanding of the slime, but the mysteries definitely don't end there. Slimes have some of the most unique spawning mechanics in the game. They spawn in 2 locations with very specific but different conditions. The first is that slimes can spawn in swamp biomes at night, but not just any night. Their tendency to spawn is directly connected to the phase of the moon. During a new moon, slimes do not spawn. As the moon becomes fuller, slimes spawn more and more often until the full moon, when they are most likely to spawn. This chance goes down as the cycle completes. So the obvious next thing to figure out is why the moon phase is important. Slimes are not the only mob whose spawning mechanics are affected by the moon. During a full moon, skeletons and zombies are more likely to spawn with enchanted gear at a higher level. Spiders are more likely to spawn with potion effects, and half of all cats are black. Each of these effects is, in some way, tied to magic. Enchantments are clearly magical, as are potion effects. Furthermore, black cats are always found in witch huts, which implies that they too have some sort of magical connection. It appears as though there's something about a fuller moon which causes magical events to occur more often. But what? One of the tricky things about the astronomy of Minecraft is that it does not work in the same way as real life. The sun, moon, and stars all move in unison. This is inconsistent with the fact that the moon has phases, which would normally be caused by the lunar orbit around the Earth. So looking to the astrodynamics of the Minecraft world for our answer is not going to help us. We're forced to take the celestial bodies at face value instead of trying to figure out how the phase works. The solution is rather simple. What if the moonlight is what's important? The full moon produces the most moonlight and the new moon the least. The light does something special, something weird to the overworld. However, the moonlight does not affect the number of mobs, just the potential magical effects. The specific mechanics of mob spawning are connected to block light levels, which do not change with the moon phase. Instead, it appears that the moonlight is a magical catalyst of some sort, driving magical events. In previous videos, I've talked about how magic works in Minecraft. We know that magic doesn't just happen, it requires energy from somewhere. For example, when enchanting, this energy occurs in the form of experience. We see it in beacons, potion brewing, the wither, and so on and so forth. While the details are explained more fully in the above video, for now it's good enough for us to know that this magical energy exists and is active in all known Minecraft magic. One potential explanation is that the moonlight contains some of this magical energy. That's why magical events occur more often with more moonlight. But there's one mob that is so closely tied to the moonlight that it cannot spawn without it, which is, of course, our slime. This implies that the slime is, unlike most mobs, an inherently magical being. Slimes cannot exist without this energy. It's a fundamentally different type of life form. We've already seen evidence of this during our slime mold discussion. Is it possible that these bizarre properties are driven by the magical energy radiated in moonlight? But why swamps? Well, the answer may be quite simple. Swamps tend to be hot and humid, and perhaps this produces the best conditions for the weak energy from the moon to spawn slimes. So for now, we have at least some understanding of the first spawning condition of slimes. But one very curious mystery is that slimes have a second, totally different spawning mechanic. Deep underground, far away from the swamps and moonlight on the surface, we can also find slimes. It must be below level 40. It happens regardless of light level and independent of the moon phase. But strangest of all, it only occurs in specific chunks, called slime chunks. These comprise about 10.4% of all chunks, and they are distributed randomly, without any sort of pattern. It is in these chunks that the second spawning option may occur. This is totally bizarre. It would be strange even if we didn't see slimes above ground. But together? How is it possible that such a unique mob occurs in 2 totally different places? Well, let's try and think through this. One sticking point is that there are literally no other unique features about slime chunks. They can occur in any biome, and the only thing that makes them special is that slimes can spawn there. It's therefore tricky to determine what is different about them. Since we don't have any more evidence, our best option is to assume that the underground slimes and the above-ground slimes are produced in a similar fashion. In other words, is it possible that the swamp conditions are somehow replicated underground, but in a way that's not obvious? Right now, we don't have the tools to answer that question. To understand what's going on, we're going to need to take a break and look at the slime's evil twin in the nether, the Magma Cube. Magma cubes are very similar to slimes. They have the same shape as well as the splitting properties. They also bounce around and act similarly. There's clearly some sort of connection, so perhaps understanding the Magma Cube will help us understand the slime. The spawning conditions for the Magma Cube are much simpler. They spawn in several nether biomes, including nether wastes and basalt deltas. These 2 biomes comprise about 54% of the total area of the nether. Furthermore, they can also be found in nether fortresses. In other words, magma cubes in the nether are much more common than slimes in the overworld. When the smallest size of a magma cube is killed, it drops magma cream. Much like slime balls and slimes, it's safe to assume that the body of magma cubes is made of magma cream. And when we take a closer look at it, we discover another connection to the slime. It's possible to combine blaze powder with a slime ball to create magma cream. This is actually pretty important. It appears as though magma cubes are very similar in composition to slimes, but with the addition of blaze powder. So how exactly do these magma cubes spawn anyways? There's no moonlight in the nether, and there are no slime chunks either. Well, as we've discovered, almost everything about the magma cube is the same as the slime, with one key difference: the presence of blaze powder. Is it somehow possible that this powder gives us a hint as to how they spawn? We've established that moonlight contains magical energy required for slimes to exist. Interestingly, we know that blaze powder also contains magical energy. It's the fuel we use for brewing potions. In other words, it's crucial for the production of many magical effects. We also see it in Eyes of Ender, powering interdimensional teleportation. Blaze powder and moonlight contain the same type of energy. While blaze powder is seemingly more potent, their basic capability is the same. It would therefore seem possible that the blaze powder in the magma cube serves as the magical energy necessary for the cube to exist, just like the moonlight for the slimes. Blaze powder is found throughout the nether. We see it indirectly with the magma cubes, as we've talked about. More explicitly, it's clearly connected to the blazes themselves. Furthermore, both the blazes and the gas can shoot fireballs, which are extremely similar to fire charges, crafted using blaze powder. This means that blaze powder has also made its way into the ghast, one of the nether's signature mobs. The prevalence of blaze powder in the nether implies that there's a lot of inherent magical energy throughout the dimension. We consistently find magical items such as ghast tears or nether warts far more often in the nether than we do in any other dimension. An interesting element of this is that magical energy is not equally distributed. One example is the Nether Fortress. These areas spawn blazes and magma cubes, and are thus the most common place where blaze powder can be found. I won't get into the details of why this is here, but you can watch my video about the Wither for more information. For our current discussion, the important thing to understand is that magical energy is found more densely here than in other places. Yet while Nether Fortresses are the places with the most blaze powder, there's another location where it occurs that is a lot more subtle. Blaze powder is found in magma blocks, which can be crafted using magma cream, which, as we already know, contains blaze powder. Magma blocks are generated randomly throughout the nether. There's a chance for any netherrack to be replaced by a blob of them. Hotspots at low altitudes where blaze powder is generated seemingly for no reason. There are some parts of the nether which can spontaneously produce blaze powder and slime in block form with no discernible pattern. Random magical locations scattered about. Does this remind you of anything we've seen before? Well, what if it's the same basic idea as the slime chunks? We've established the magical properties of the blaze powder in magma blocks, but the energy contained within needed to come from somewhere. Similarly, we know that slimes require magical energy. Above ground, it has to come from the moon. But below ground, these slimes would still require magic, just as the magma blocks require magic. This connection is far from obvious, but it appears as though the mechanism that produces magma blocks is the same as the one that produces slimes. Both occur in random sections of space at low altitudes. Both need magic to even exist. So what's stopping a magical hotspot from producing both of them? If this is truly the case, then why do the nether hotspots create magma blocks but not magma cubes? It may simply be that cubes are a higher energy level than blocks. After all, there are places in the overworld where magma blocks can spawn, deep in underwater ravines, for example. But even the most extreme environments of the overworld pale compared to the nether. We do find them in some of the harsher biomes of the nether, such as the basalt deltas. Slimes, on the other hand, do not require anywhere near this level of energy to be produced. Dull moonlight is enough. This implies that, while similar hotspots occur in the overworld, they're much less powerful than in the nether, and could not produce anything more than a slime. Let's get a quick recap. Slimes require magical energy to be produced. In the overworld swamps, it occurs as moonlight, but this magical energy can also be found in dense hotspots deep underground. We know this is possible because we see the same thing happening in the nether. Fortresses are the most extreme examples, but it also occurs in places with magma blocks. This theory is somewhat complex, and it relies on a conjunction of seemingly unrelated ideas found in totally different places. On their own, each piece of evidence doesn't tell us much. However, when put together, a theory forms that is more complex than the sum of its parts. Just like real-life slime mold, lots of small parts work together to produce something far more interesting. Now, as with all theories, I encourage you not to take my words as truth. Rather, think about the evidence and come up with your own ideas. There are a few things we need to discuss about this theory. One aspect that we did not totally explain is why these hotspots exist randomly. We've talked in previous videos about some things having more magic energy than others, but what makes these hotspots special? One option is that it's just truly random noise. That's how it's presented in-game. But it's also possible that there's some in-universe reason for these specific locations. Either way, we don't really know for sure. There may be some people who counter and say that magma blocks exist just because of heat, and not some inherent magical energy. But it seems to me that the two might be connected. Blaze powder is obviously hot, and more magical beings occur in the Nether, the hottest place of all. Furthermore, portals require heat. So while magma blocks could be considered a product of a hot environment, I would argue that most magic requires some form of heat to begin with. I'm not convinced we can totally separate the two, especially considering the magical blaze powder found within the magma block. This was not an easy theory by any stretch, and we had to search far and wide to find any sort of explanation. Still, I believe this theory is at least plausible enough to be considered. Does it make sense to you? Did I miss something? Am I totally incorrect? The main purpose of this video is to get a discussion going. With enough people thinking about it, we can surely figure out how everything works. If you think you found something, please mention it in the comments below. You can also post it on the RGN subreddit or come on over to the Discord server. We've had some really cool conversations, and I'd love to hear your voice. Also, don't forget to check out Core. It's completely free. Use the link in the description to get started. We'll go ahead and end with that. This has been RetroGamingNow. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Have a great day.